I'm here with Keith. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
So, Keith, I'm going to give you just like 1 minute so you introduce yourself to my audience, tell me what you're on about, and a little bit about you and where they can find you.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm Keith, and I started a movement called All Is One Movement. I own a few businesses, but I'm powered by that. The mission of the All Is One Movement, which is to bring people together physically and spiritually. So I've built my businesses around that concept. I'm very about building communities, and that's kind of my vision, to build more community and build more stronger relationships and businesses that do that.
Yeah, that's great. So you talked about a little bit about spirituality, and I think that correlates to what I saw about you, about being a certified metaphysician. So please tell me what was a metaphysician?
Metaphysics, we study a lot more about the spiritual universe and the concepts of like the energies of our body and the energy of spiritual universe. So it's a lot more about like the energy and the reality within every concept. Yeah, for example, I go to the school that I study at for metaphysics. Is they have a concept called change your aura, change your life, and so it teaches a lot about like that. Everything has color in the spiritual universe, just like as in the physical universe, color we use to identify things. So in the spiritual universe, these colors represent divine qualities. And for example, the yellow light is for focus and concentration. So we learn to bring that light into our aura, into our energy, to kind of radiate focus and concentration to our life and kind of bring more of that light into our life. So we learn to bring these different lights down and practice meditation. So a lot of that's what a lot of the teachings are.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I'm interested in meditation as a person, and because I do meditate, but lately I've not been as consistent as I want to be. Can you tell me like because for some people who might not be listening, some of maybe the physical or maybe spiritual benefits of meditation, if you may.
Yeah. So like for meditation, a lot of people think that they have trouble with meditation because they can't, they say they have too much thoughts and they're thinking too much and they can't meditate, but that's not like the point of meditation is not to clear your mind to the point where you're not thinking. That's impossible, right? We're always thinking. The point of meditation is to help rule your thoughts. So when you rule your thoughts, you take control of your decisions, right? And control your life, and you rule your words, you rule your actions. And that's the whole point, is kind of rule your life, right? So meditation, I always tell people, if you're just starting out in meditation, focus more on just letting your thoughts go. So instead of engaging in your thoughts, you kind of acknowledge those thoughts as they're coming in and then let them go, kind of like release them. That's how you kind of start to take power over your thoughts and control your mind more. And that's more of the importance of meditations, that the practice is to rule your mind and rule your thoughts so you're in control. Eventually, obviously, you come at more peace and just control more of your emotions and kind of everything in your physical life.
Yeah, that's pretty great. But I want us to like cut off on a quick tangent now, because I'll still come back to this topic, which I find really interesting. Let's talk about the All Is One movement and the community you're building. What kind of community are you building, and what's the aim and purpose of bringing people together?
So when I was in high school, I was in my last year of high school. I always tell this little story, but because this is how I kind of came to the conclusion that we're all one, and I started the All Is One movement. Is I was sitting my last year of high school trying to figure out if I'm going to go to college or not, and I started thinking, well, what is school and why does it exist? And then that thought led to, why does the universe exist? Who am I? And I started thinking, and I get really deep in thought and getting all these thoughts and messages, and I came to the conclusion that we're like, everything comes down to the same energy. We breathe the same air. We're all from the same place. So we're all one and we're all connected. And so then I started thinking more about what has built everything. And if you think about like everything that we have on earth is built because people came together to do it. We built relationships to do it. We came together as a community. We're worked together to build everything we have. So what's the most important thing is ourselves, people, relationships, community. And so the All is One movement kind of was inspired by that. It was like a movement with a mission to bring people together physically and spiritually. So I started building this app where you could find groups of people getting together near you right now, and you can join them. And that's something you could see at getupin.com, GETUPIN.com. And it's just an app where you could find people getting together locally near you and be able to join them. And so that brings people together physically. And then spiritually is more about seeking, I always say this, to seek the lesson in every experience, result, and moment. And so to always to seek new perspective, because when we seek new perspective, we can kind of keep our mind open. We seek to come to the same conclusion, come to understanding. Because imagine if, all of us were always seeking to understand each other. There wouldn't be any war, and there wouldn't be any of that if we were able to always be seeking to understand each other instead of be so stuck on our own perspective. So to open your mind to new perspective brings us together spiritually.
From what I've thought before, you're saying that we could, engineer it into people to always seek like the better part of each other, try to find out the better part of each other. Well, does that necessarily work all the time? That are we inherently good? Are we like inherently wired to cooperate? And are we just like not quite evil towards each other by nature?
If I understand your question correctly, I'm saying like that we're all different. We all have different perspectives, but I see everything as like a puzzle, right? It's like the different pieces to the puzzles, or the things that make us unique, is what makes us the same and kind of come together like we only fit together being different. So like in a sense, being different is what brings us together. It's just kind of a matter of finding out where our position is, how we come together, how we can work together with our differences and with our unique abilities, and kind of combine our power and our resources. And that goes for the same with seeing different perspectives. Is that's how we learn and grow, is to learn each other's different perspectives, and kind of embed our perspectives into whatever situation we're in to make the situation or decision that we're trying to make better. And that's how we learn and grow together.
Yeah, for people who might be interested in joining, or I don't know if people could join this movement or people are allowed to join. You said only through the app. Is there things like maybe apart from maybe we are living not in a COVID world right now? What do you think? Are there also physical meetups apart from apps and all those things?
Yeah, we don't need to, come together physically to be together. Like I was saying, being together is just more about seeking to understand each other and learning from each other. So like if people want to join, just do what the mission is. And I mean, you can go check out allisonemovement.com and read more about it. And you can, put your email in to be part of it and just stay up to date. But, companies is kind of what it means to be part of that movement, is to just join the movement of doing things in that alignment of the mission of bringing people together physically, spiritually, and sharing knowledge and growing together. And so the movement's already in motion by people.
Yeah. There's this video I saw you once because I was on your Instagram before, and you talked about finding peace. Yeah. So for people that might be listening, because right now we live in this kind of world where people are depressed and always full with anxiety, what is like the best path is?
I think all of that starts with yourself, because I always say you can't find peace. You don't really. Peace is not something you look for. It's something that you live in and you bring to every experience and everything that you do. Right. So it's like it comes a lot from self-awareness. The more self-aware you are of how you function and that ability to rule your thoughts and rule your emotions and your words and your actions and all that is what helps you kind of live in a state of peace. And when you live in a state of peace all the time, no matter what the experience is or what the situation is, whether there's chaos or not around you, you're bringing peace to that. You find peace within yourself, within the situation, your ability to seek the lesson in the situation or the experience or whatever's going on is what helps you find peace. So I'll say to find peace in anything, seek the lesson, seek how you're growing from the situation and what there is to learn. Because when we do that, that's part of life. That's the whole purpose of those situations, and everything that we do is to learn and grow from them and grow in more power. And so that's how we kind of live in peace, by bringing that concept to every situation experience.
For people who might be listening now, they might have this question in their head. Like me, most times I often wonder what's the difference between spirituality and religion. What do you think is that distinction between them?
So I think that the difference is more in our own perspective, that we kind of may see it separate, but I see it as the same, because spirituality is more of a concept of finding reality, seeking lesson, and in everything. So technically, religion is still spiritual, and I think spiritual though uses divine concepts and things. Like obviously, to kill someone isn't divine. That's not in the way of the universe, and things like that. It's more like religion is more of a belief standpoint, which is a more traditional belief that this is the way we want to do things, and this is what we believe in, and this is how we grow spiritually. Versus spirituality is more of could be of anything, and it's more of the whole concept of growing spiritually internally, becoming more self-aware, and coming together as a people, and growing consciously and everything as a whole.
So there's no bright line between these two. Like you could say that they are like mostly intertwined.
Yeah,
But,
everything is spiritual.
yeah. So I want us to go back to, because when you talked about all this one movement and you talked about people and connecting and forming communities. Now, because I thought about those values that you mentioned about people coming together and the values they could share. We could take some of these values to our own personal lives to build relationships. What do you think is, because in the long term, the side effect of, bringing values of people coming together and sharing, and like, how do you think it affects people's life in their own personal relationship with others, like in their own lives, like the values they learn with community, with being together, with communicating with people? How do you think it affects their own life and their relationships?
So are you saying how do I think? What were you saying? How do I think? What is? I'm sorry. If you can rephrase the question.
Yeah, the values from, because all is one is about community, right? About connecting with people and communicating with people, and there are these values you mentioned about interacting with people, exchanging ideas. And how do you think? Because for people who are in this movement and who would join, what do you think are the values they could take from this movement that help them to better their relationships with other people, even outside of all is one movement?
Okay, yeah, I say that. So obviously relationships are very important. Community is very important. And how do you build great relationships? Communication is what kind of builds strong relationships, because we need to communicate. And then those strong relationships is what makes strong community. So, but then how do you have good communication? That comes down to self-awareness. So, and self-awareness, I say that it's a lot of that is a practice of being able to question your own experiences and questioning, what is it you're learning from every experience? And I'm kind of coming down to that ability to rule your thoughts and understand how you think and understand how you work and why you do what you do. And, practicing to rule your actions and your emotions and all that. And the more you can do that, the more you build empathy and the more you become self-aware and the more easier it is to build relationships and show compassion towards others. And easier it is to communicate what it is that you're trying to say more clearly, and that of course builds better relationships.
That makes a lot of sense now, and I think I want to go back to think about metaphysics, because I want to get your own viewpoint on a lot of things as much as possible. Because now, as a metaphysician, I want to know how you see the world different from just maybe a normal person, someone like me who doesn't have your own kind of expertise and your own kind of knowledge. How do you see the world?
So I say that it's, it could be complicating. I don't see it physically are much different from everybody else. But how I look at everything is basically, I see everything as like a lesson. Like everything I go through and experience, I question like what it is that I'm learning from this, and how am I growing from this? How is this connected to the better of the world? And I also see things for what they are. So when things happen or I deal with something, I'm questioning, what really is this? What's the purpose of this? What's the reason of this? And then I also personally, I started to see things as energy. So I look at things and that one's a little more complicated to explain, but I'm seeing kind of conscious energy, and how if something is in alignment with the divine or not. So I'm looking at everything as like, is this a divine decision? Is this, the way it's supposed to be? Or am I letting my ego get in the way? If I'm making a selfish decision or something like that? So I'm kind of practicing being aware of those things when I'm making decisions, or, doing whatever it is that I'm doing.
Yeah. Now, because what you said about being aware, it strikes me, because for someone like me, I've tried to emulate that in my own life, and say and tell myself that I want to be aware, and I want to not make my life be on autopilot. Like, I want to be aware of what I'm thinking and the decisions I'm making. Well, oftentimes I feel, because most times I just do things and I'm not really aware as I want to be. How, for someone like me, for someone who might be listening, how do you think they could become more aware and be self-aware and just be more aware in general in their own lives?
I would say to ask the right questions. So anything that you experience, and this is how it also started for me, was the question why. So everything that happens in your life or around you or whatever it might be, question why. Why did it happen, and think about that. And it takes a real conscious effort sometimes to really think about those things and think into them and think of things a purpose. But the more that you do that, the more you build a habit of doing so, and the more you'll come to conclusions, start seeing connections and things. And the more when you do that, the more you will take away from every experience, the more you will learn from everything that you experience, basically. And that's how you kind of get into that pattern of self-awareness, is really just questioning the life around you and the things that you're doing, and why you're doing what you're doing, and making sure that it's in alignment with your values. Like who really are you is really the values that you carry, and what it is that you want to bring to this world and accomplish, and your goals and your purpose. So knowing that is a huge first step to being more self-aware, is to knowing who you are, why you do what you do.
Yeah, and I think that's like, that expands on, there's something you said before about being conscious, and yeah, and because for maybe in your own perspective, in a metaphysician's perspective, how would you define consciousness?
I see consciousness as everything, as a whole, and there's a lot of complicated ways to explain it, because it goes in very deep. But to briefly try to simply explain it, is pretty much that everything is consciousness and everything is a whole. And in metaphysics, there's a lot of different realms and areas that they say that being tapped into, you see more. For example, for example, every idea is already in existence, right? You can, all that we get our ideas all from the same cosmetic, universal connection. So like in the universe, all ideas exist just as the same as the concept that the past, present, future all exist at the same time. Like everything, all possibilities are already there. It's just a matter of kind of executing them or applying them, or, seeing the answer. So consciousness is really, it's just an evolving energy of all that exists. And every human being has a kind of own level of consciousness. It kind of, and in a way, I mean, you could say, yeah, awareness, but it's like more of a spiritual awareness. It's how much you see, and how much self-awareness you have, in a way. But to be brief, it's just consciousness as everything expanding.
Yeah. No, I like your in-depth analysis of that, and I think that's because we talked about consciousness in like the way I've not heard before. But now, if we go back to spirituality, because most that's what like you are about spirituality, but do you think like living a more spiritual life, like people who do you think people who are more spiritually inclined live tend to live a happier life?
I do, and the reason is because when you're in a sense more spiritually inclined, I'm assuming that it's the same way as saying that you're more self-aware and you see more, and when you see more, um, it's easier to rule over the obstacles in life. It's easier to work through the challenges in life because when it's easier to be more optimistic and see a solution, and for that you then have less anxiety and you deal with less pain and less fear. And when you're able to rule your thoughts, you're able to find peace in situations and for the most part, most situations and most things that you deal with. And so, it's that's kind of why, I'd say yes, that being more spiritually inclined would definitely benefit your life and make life seem or appear easier and feel like you're growing more.
Yeah, now for people who suffer from depression, mental health issues, anxiety, and just mental health issues in general, do you feel because okay, I want to ask maybe your advice for them or what you will have to tell them if you were giving them maybe a consulting or something.
Mm-hmm.
What's this one thing you would tell them?
To seek the lesson in every experience, to have faith in every experience that you go through, because the challenges of life is what makes us grow. That's a part of life, and that's the point of life. It's not just like any video game, right? Every level is not meant to be easy. So you face the challenges you're facing because you're not only meant to face those challenges, but you have the ability to overcome them. Otherwise, you wouldn't be facing them. So you have to have faith that there is a solution and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And through that faith, find the lesson and find where you're growing from those experiences. So as long as you can do that, you'll continue growing and you'll feel like you're growing. It'll be easier to find peace in those situations and overcome your fear and anxiety that you might deal with them in that process.
So what do you think as people, as maybe as humans, because you talked about community, human beings and people, what do you think is one of the most important questions we should be asking?
I like the question, why? Why is something happening, or why do I do what I do? So when I do something, I question, why and how it works. And the more I understand that, the more I'm able to use that knowledge to apply to creating better of the situation. So I'd say the question why is one of the most powerful.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Asking why in every scenario. Well,
yeah.
What do you think is the meaning of life, or what gives your life meaning?
I think there's a lot of different ways to perceive that question, because you could say that finding the meaning of life to what you want it to mean in our physical life. But if you're asking, what the purpose of being physically existent is, it's a long answer, but technically it's that we physically, we need to exist, because time and energy, if you took everything away that physically exists, all you'd have left, the only thing that is eternal, is time and energy. The time being the idea that we're constantly moving forward in motion, and energy is being non-destructible or created, right? So we're just evolving constantly. So, through a process of evolving and evolution and all that, we kind of were created as human beings. And the more that we exist physically and go through these experiences, you could even see it in a physical perspective of things, how just by living as human beings on Earth, how much we've created through trial and error and making mistakes, and all the technology that we've created, and how much we've made life so much easier. And there's always going to be challenges, but we're always growing through them, and we're always finding ways to be happy through them and at peace. So it's, in a sense, it's the purpose of life and the meaning of life is to is one that we need to exist in order to evolve in power as time and energy is just constantly moving forward in motion. But also as human beings, every human being, what we're meant to do, being physically existent on earth, is to live in our whole potential, find what that is, and serve others with it. So, we each individually have a strength and have something that we're bringing to earth, even if it's as small as serving people at a restaurant. I've seen some people who, are serving food at a restaurant, and you could see how happy and how much joy they have doing that. And you could tell, they're serving a purpose. They're bringing joy and love to serving the people at that restaurant. So as small as that may seem, it's a huge purpose. And so, we gotta find what that purpose is for ourselves, find our strengths. I always say, seek to figure out what your strengths are. What are you most passionate about? And put those things together. Once you find something that you are both have a strength in and you're also passionate about, keep doing that, because it's most likely your purpose, and serve others with that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's in depth. Since I started this podcast, I don't think there's anybody who has given me a really deep answer to that question. Thank you. And I think before you go, I want to put you on the spotlight now for as much as you want. Just talk about what you do, where people can find you, ways they can contact you, and everything and anything you want to tell my audience at all. So you can go.
Thank you. If I, like I said, one thing I always say to everybody is just to seek the lesson, have faith in every experience, moment, and result, and seek the lesson in everything, because that's how we grow. And if you want to learn more about the All Is One movement, you can go to allisonemovement.com. I think all my business is on there on the project page there. And my personal website, I do offer like life coaching, relationship coaching, business consulting, and that's KeithJMintz.com, KeithJMintz.com. And yeah, I think stay well and have faith in the process, and again, seek the lesson in everything that you go through.
Yeah, that was really interesting. Thank you for sharing your expertise and your knowledge on the podcast. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was nice having a conversation with you.
You too.